Times change. The marketing landscape changes. One thing that's been solid as a rock for decades is email. For scaling brands, we find that 65% of revenue in Klaviyo comes from buyers. And on a 7-day last click, we find that customer retention is 10 times more cost-effective than ads. Conversion rate optimization is even more cost-effective. Translation: if you aren't doing email, SMS, and CRO, you're spinning your wheels on new customers and spending way too much to drive revenue. Unfortunately, with the growth of e-commerce and the onslaught of email, Gmail and Yahoo are making it harder than ever to reach the inbox. The cheapest customer is the customer you already have, so if you need help with this mess, come to pallethouse.co, fill out the lead form, and ask to speak to me directly.
In the inbox late night, glowing screen, see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
Deliverability is a funny thing because you'd think that the larger your list, the more likely you are to run into problems. But the internet seems to have a very clever weighting system. Everyone who's listening to this either has a brand that was growing really fast at some point, or they're about to have a lot of tremendous growth. Oftentimes, you go from having no problems, and growth causes problems because the car is moving faster, which means it's easier to lose control of it, which means that a deliverability problem has more impact. So the number one thing that everybody must do
Hey everybody, in this podcast, we got right into it, right into the depths of how email works. And then half an hour in, introduced Benny's brand. So we want to take a quick second to introduce senders.co, what they do, how they can help you. And so to that end, hey Benny, why don't you give a quick intro to your brand and then we'll go into the podcast.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Senders.co is an email deliverability focused company. We do a lot of consulting on helping people solve email deliverability problems. And in the case of B2B emails, like if you're doing wholesale emails or partnership emails or influencer aimed emails that are broader, we actually get more deeply involved in hosting and getting those things together. But we're email deliverability focused. That's our only focus. And if you have a seemingly intractable email deliverability problem, or you're nervous about it for whatever reason, come on by. Benny@senders.co is my email address, or you can find us online at senders.co.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And now we're going to jump into the podcast, which, by the way, is like an hour of amazing deliverability discussion that you can't get anywhere else. And in the end, we actually said, oh, there's more to discuss, and we're going to have a 2.0. So if you really want to understand how email works, stick around. Until then, have fun spamming. Happy Halloween! It's the world's best email and retention podcast, and I'm your host, Jordan Gordon. We are a member of the DTC network of podcasts and the philosophical home of the Pilot House email and customer retention team. If you want to make the sweet nectar of low-cost revenue a large part of your digital ecosystem, then follow us on your favorite podcast app today. This time we are joined by Benny Rubin, the CEO and founder of Senders.co, a deliverability company in the email space. And we're going to have a large discussion about inboxing and just some of the things that he's facing right now in his business and what's coming at him. And hopefully it will expand all of our knowledge of email. So Benny, great to meet you.
Great to be here, Jordan Gordon. Tell me, what size email list do most of your listeners have, do you imagine? Like where in the sort of spectrum do you feel they are?
All over the place. Like I have people so we're also with Pilot House. I do have a team and a service, although this podcast is for the good of the world of email. And so people do come in with, that are sending over 1 million emails. And then people also come in who, they're just, say they've got a brick and mortar business and they're saying, we want to go DTC and we're building their Klaviyo from scratch. So we see the whole spectrum, but I'd say, certainly lots of like 50,000 to 500,000, you know what I mean? Lots of action in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Deliverability is a funny thing because you'd think that the larger your list, the more likely you are to run into problems. But the internet seems to have a very clever weighting system about how it decides where problems crop up and where they don't. So for example, a hard-won 500,000 person email list that had a very steady uptick and a reasonable amount of engagement very well may totally outperform like a 50,000 person email list. And a 50,000 person email list that kind of grew in fits and starts, but is generally sound, will completely outperform a 500,000 person email list that was built carefully over time, where one fat-fingered IT person from an outsourced firm went in and messed up a DMARC record or messed up a DNS record of some sort, and then they did 500,000 sends, and then the internet sent all of them to spam, and then they take weeks and weeks or months to recover. So it's kind of a tricky game. Like when clients come to us, we do a lot of B2B email, which we can talk all about. Deliverability in the B2B space is wild. But when clients come to us, oftentimes the solution is, oh, you're doing something just critically wrong right here. This needs to be fixed, and then you need to do a little bit of work to get it back on track. And sometimes it's, way more catastrophic. You're just like, what is going on with this? Your domain is absolutely destroyed. What did you guys do? That kind of thing.
I'd love to pull right on that thread. And then maybe we should pivot at that point and go into I'd love to know a little bit more about your past, but on that thread right there, look, I've been in the trenches before. I mean, I've got a team of 35 people right now, but for a long time I was on the brand side, just like trying to figure email out the hard way, learning from mistakes. And so I've certainly, caused some inboxing problems in my day. It has happened. Often you just kind of, we'd straighten things out. It repairs, it kind of self-heals, right? You stop being so bullheaded. But also I've seen domains that are stubbornly hard to get back to health. And I wonder if you can maybe talk about, as long as we're here, some of the different factors that would make it faster or slower or more easier or more difficult to repair a damaged sending reputation.
Age of domain really, really matters. I think it's not often talked about enough. You launch a new e-commerce company or you launch a new e-commerce channel of some sort, or you are brick and mortar, but then you go D2C and your agency says, hey, a new domain that kind of fits the thing might be better. If you're, you guys are called Mary Jane's Wonderful Hot Sauce Depot, but what if we just call it MJ Hot Sauce? Let's get mjhotsauce.com. Let's go to market with that. Everyone will get it. So then you're like, well, how many emails do you have? We have 50,000 already. Great. Right off the bat, you may just run into problems simply because your domain isn't registered early enough for the internet to think this is legitimate. Because one of the ways that spammers historically have operated is you spin up a new domain, you burn it. You spin up a new domain, you burn it. So a new domain tends to be looked at quite negatively. So that's one very clear and obvious thing
And
that everyone should be aware of.
You'd need to have a different warm-up kind of process for a new domain versus a damaged domain. Yeah?
For sure. In the sense that warm-up, there's sort of two kinds of warm-up, very roughly. Artificial and non-artificial. Non-artificial warm-up, like real warm-up, would be, okay, well, all the shop people that you already sent to that have come in and swiped a card at your register, we're going to leave those on the Mary Jane's domain for now. Then all the D2C stuff, we're going to start fresh on this new domain, and we're going to build it as we build. And after 3 months, we're going to merge the two. That's like a very rational way to think about it. Even though, keep in mind, you might be doing hot sauce emails from the original one too, but you're sort of building the Klaviyo fresh, and you're trying to build a cadence of, we have 1 subscriber, 10, 15, 20, 50, 100, 200. Hey, when we get to 5,000, then we're going to merge the two lists. Or we get to 1,000, we're going to merge the lists. Whatever feels sort of normal, nice, and comfortable. So that's another thing where the sudden jumps can create deliverability problems simply because the internet's like, I don't know, were you hacked and someone's dumping emails, or did something happen that we don't know about? It can just it sort of spooks the internet. It actually spooks the ESPs, the email service providers, not the internet. But you know what I mean? I'm being a little bit fantastical.
Yeah, of course. It's a good generalization. It makes sense. And it's kind of like there are no independent events on the internet. Every single thing is affecting something else. So it is the right way to think about it. It's one organization. It's one unit. I'll just say, every time I sit down with someone who's really, really deep in protocol or in deliverability, they just every single time they'll say something that I just find really fascinating and that really, helps kind of grow my understanding. So that was great. Wow. I hope we have more of that over the next half.
Well, I'll tell you some other stuff that we see all the time. So everyone who's listening to this either has a brand that was growing really fast at some point, or they're about to have a lot of tremendous growth. And the truth is that if they don't have either of those two things, then they'll probably pivot or change to doing something else. So really, almost all the problems come with change and with growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of applies to everyone listening, because if you don't have a growing brand now, you probably need to change brands in a certain sense, or change something up that reinvigorates it. So oftentimes you go from having no problems at all, and growth causes problems because the train is moving faster or the car is moving faster or whatever, which means it's easier to lose control of it, which means that a deliverability problem has more impact, which means that. So the number one thing that everybody must do, and this is best practices, it's not something I invented, is make sure that you have subdomains set up for the different kinds of outbound email that's going. So it can be marketing dot, it can be try dot, it can be delicious dot. If you look at any major airline or anyone like that, 99.99% of major emailers are using email dot or whatever. So a subdomain that's set up to do the sending is critically important. And the reason why it's important is that in some ways, the deliverability of the subdomain affects the main domain, but by and large, the internet is much more forgiving of a subdomain. It just is. So that's really important. And oftentimes you see brands are going out and they have a really cool brand name. They're called, Deluxe Fit or something cool like that. And it's like, we're Deluxe Fit, deluxefit.com. It makes perfect sense. And then like, ooh, switching to a subdomain, that's ugly. Everything's Deluxe Fit and it's wonderful. Totally fine. But at a certain point, you're not really doing yourself any favors by sending directly from your main domain. You probably should be doing a subdomain. Now, I said something where I put a little Easter egg. These days, a lot of companies that seem to be D2C only actually have multiple kinds of emails that they're doing. So an example of this would be if your brand was called Deluxe Fit, you may have Deluxe Fit marketing emails going into your Klaviyo. Amazing. Great. And that's growing at a fast clip. Congratulations. But then you have an influencer marketing person that's doing a really aggressive outreach to everyone that's dressed really well on Instagram. That's like, hey, do you want to partner? So that becomes a cold email motion. Maybe that's also going from deluxefit.com. Then the third one is actually we have a platform where you can save your favorite fit in Deluxe Fit. And that one has transactional emails if someone messes up their password or someone gets confused or we update a style. We have this transactional email that goes out that's not a marketing email and not a sales email. It's transactional. And sometimes people have things like loops set up, or maybe even they use HubSpot for just that kind of marketing because it's a little bit more like existing customer or partner something going on. So that's a third email channel. And then you have regular corporate mail, and your founder, bless his heart, has been really aggressively going at angel investors to raise another round of financing or going at seed stage funds. So he's sending out hundreds of emails a day from his account or her account that's just cold. And all those things combined going out from one domain.
Yeah, mayhem.
Can just invite a deliverability problem.
Yeah.
Largely mitigated if you use subdomains for all the different kinds of sending, except maybe your regular corporate mail that you don't need too much.
Yeah, I have
going out from.
I have experienced that myself in past with a domain that ended up, kind of just, I don't know what I'll say, but deader than dead. We couldn't get it back to life, and we actually just ended up switching because it was a SaaS company, and the product allowed the clients to email their clients, which is just like mayhem. So different senders, different list, all like different everything going through one domain because of this SaaS product. And so, ended up finding out some of these people doing this are actually doing it maliciously. Like it was just...
Yes, of course. Well, it's malicious, not malicious. We've all been in that scenario where...
Spammy, just a little aggressive.
Or you're just like, oh, well, this is available to me. I will do it. You don't think so much about it. Keep in mind that this leads directly into, if we're talking about the fact that most emailers have some sort of spread of emails going across different purposes, subdomains are a pretty good way to shield yourself, even just in the early stages. If any of you have a smallish email list and it's growing, it's actually not a very heavy lift to introduce a subdomain and get it configured properly.
Get your foundation set up right.
And all of these problems get compounded whenever non-opt-in emails get mixed in with the sending of your company. So I talked about a marketing list that's growing, and I said the founders doing emails to investors, potential investors. Well, those are cold emails. Cold emails have much lower open rates, much lower reply rates. And if they're being done aggressively, or if you're doing influencer outbound, or maybe if you're just not getting as much opens, action, clicks, positive signal as you do from the opt-in marketing emails on lists that you keep clean. And so if those are on the same domain, they can really drag everything down. They just can.
I think we should pivot right now to the discussion we were having a little bit over email, because that's right on that, which is services that include in your list email addresses of people who visited your site but have never subscribed, never filled out the form, and they get it from some kind of data broker because there's permission sharing. And I'll just say, before you say anything else, I'll say, in my opinion, permission sharing is not compatible with Castle Can Spam legislation. So I don't even know if those services should exist. But whether or not they should exist, you are filling your list with people who've never even thought about giving permission. So do you have any comments on your experience with that kind of service?
On a fundamental level, this isn't a dodge. I'm going to get to an answer, but I tend to talk a lot, and it's Friday and it's Halloween, so we're digging into it. I like to say that email it's all about ratios. It's all about ratios. If I send 5 emails and 3 people open it, they're all from the same domain. They're pretty much all from the same IP address, roughly. They basically say the same thing. The internet that receives emails and delivers them is Google and Microsoft. There are other players, but largely it's Google and Microsoft. They're doing a little calculation. Hey, 3 out of 5 of the emails that went were open, or 3 out of 5 of the emails that went, someone clicked on it. I see it. If 3 out of 5 of those emails are marked as spam, well, the majority of these emails were marked as spam. That's serious. That's not good. That's bad, right? They have a tool called Google Postmaster tool. You can go and it tells you the ratio of the sends from a domain that were marked as spam. Well, that's an incredibly high rate, 3 out of 5. But if 3 out of 5 people open and interact positively, that's good. So if you scale that really big and you say, hey, we have 100,000 lists, 40% of them open and do something, or 20% of them open and do something. If you're constantly feeding in emails that have a low open or low engagement for some reason, whether you're buying them or whether you're using a service that's converting anonymous traffic into anonymous traffic and you're basically systematically pulling down your ratio. And sometimes if your lists are very big and the amount of not great emails are being fed in at a slow rate, it doesn't really do that much. In the case that the ratio can affect things, it can affect things very negatively.
And I've certainly seen half the list end up these kinds of emails in a year. In 1 year, suddenly, like, your list has your main list has grown like 20%, but then your non-native list, I call it native and non-native, your non-native list is half of your list. Well,
yeah, I hesitate to even talk about how to benefit the most from service like that. We can actually, because it seems like a weird thing, like you're super negative on this, so I don't want to be like, we're going to use the service because the combination of what Jordan said and Benny said means it's good to go. So forget that for a second. Let's switch gears just to talk about a scenario that we've all seen that is very legit, which is you had a hot sauce product and you had really cool barbecue bibs going. And a while you were like, this is cool. They're separate brands. And at a certain point, it was like, it's kind of a pain. They're on 2 separate Shopifys, 2 separate everything. Let's merge them together. So now suddenly you're merging 2 lists, or even better or worse, depending on the way you think about it, you had a bib brand that you sunsetted 2 years ago, but you had all those emails sitting there, and you know that the hot sauce people like the bibs and vice versa. So you're like,
And it's
hey, we're
been
going to
sitting there
revive the
for
brand
2
just to bring this
years.
list in.
Yeah.
Okay. So this sounds so simple, but it's so important. You have to do outside verification of these emails. I would not trust whatever email system says that they're verifying before sending. I would not trust it. I would just use some outside system. It doesn't matter what it is, Million Verifier, Unbound, something like that. Run it through at least once on whatever settings make sense.
And sorry, by the way, Zero Bounce, by the way, also has been on the pod.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Sorry, please continue.
What we're talking about is basic email verification. It's worth the cost. It's usually a penny or a fraction of a penny per, but it's worth the cost just for the system to be like, hey, this percentage of these are not good. They're not. It's not gonna work. They're not gonna be delivered. Don't mess with them. Or they're not valid emails, because that happens often too. People. I know we hang on to our email accounts forever, but in the normal world, people actually will shut down a Gmail account. They'll be like, oh, I don't use this anymore, and they'll shut it down.
Yeah.
So
or they'll just walk away from it, and it'll fill up, and it'll
walk away
from
from
it.
Sure.
Right? By the way, everybody on the audience, we offer this as a service. If you ever want it, you come fill out the lead form at pilothouse.co, and we'll help you out. Please continue, Benny.
What do you do? What as a service? I mean, running retention.
Well, people come to us all day with broken everything we're describing. People come to us, and they've done all the things we're describing on top of each other in a massive spam sandwich, and then we clean them up. And one of the things we do is we work with these tools and do all this stuff. So, hey, maybe we're going to work with you in future, right?
Heck yeah. So what I'm saying is, you do this sort of verification process. Actually, I'm gonna say this. You can go to Pilot House and they'll help you with this stuff, but that's not an excuse for not knowing what should be done.
Absolutely.
Because this kind of like pull down the list, put it through an email verification, take the ones that aren't going to be delivered, put it in a Google Sheet marked as what it is, and pull them out of your email circulation is just a smart thing to do. And again, I'm going to say this again, even if the email platform you're using says they're doing this for you already, there are different kinds of verification. There's different levels of it. And honestly, sometimes, I don't want to like make some sort of conspiracy claim here, but the internal systems that a lot of these folks use lean towards telling you that the email will be delivered.
Because they charge on list count.
Because they charge on list count. I didn't say that. You said that. But I'm just saying it's always like a little bit suspicious when you're like, well, it says it's being delivered okay, but it hasn't had an open in 6 months. And then you pull down the list and you upload it to just any of these other systems, and it says, it won't be delivered. And you're like, that's interesting. And I'm sure if I brought one of my technicians on, he could like walk through all the technical reasons why one might say one and one might say the other, and the different kinds of verification that it could be doing. And maybe one does less than the other. It's sort of irrelevant. The point I'm trying to make is, if you have a big list, you should be pulling it down, culling it to a certain extent. But there's another kind of thing that we see happening a lot, which is because open rates have become a faulty metric. They're pretty good directionally, but they don't really mean that much.
Although when they're really low, it means something.
Well, if they were higher and then you saw them slide down over time, then that means that directionally they're useful. If from the get-go they're wonky for whatever, and people listening to this, you have all different kinds of audiences. You might think that like email is all the same, but if you're a company that sells hospital scrubs and half the people on your list have hospital affiliated email addresses, open rates, everything is just going to be different than someone that sells to another audience. Just in general. Or if you're someone that skews very high into boomers, you might see a lot of like Comcast email addresses and just sort of.
Is that because like a .gov address will do better than a .com or something like that? Is that for real on email?
On the sending side or the receiving side?
On the recipient.
Oh, well, I think you should focus less on the actual email address or the domain, or like what you call the top level domain, .gov.edu, less. What you want to focus on more is the email service provider of the recipient. So that sounds silly to the listeners because that's usually not on your mind. But if you look in your email system, oftentimes it gives you a little pie chart, and like usually it's whatever, 72% of them are Google, and then 16% are use Microsoft, and then other one. If you were actually if you were selling to nurses, selling scrubs to nurses, and you did have 50% of the people using
on
their
Office or something like that, right?
hospital email addresses.
Yeah, okay,
It could
yeah.
be Microsoft Office, but it also could have other layers of security in front of it because hospitals need higher level security. It could have like Proofpoint or Agari or all these things that can actually.
Proofpoint. Oh my God. I've seen so much Proofpoint. When I pull all the domains and I'm like looking at it, and it's like Proofpoint, click-through rate, 78% or something like that, right? And it's like
Right.
just
And the reason
feeding
why
false
those
clicks into everybody's system, and they think their click-through rate's higher than it is.
that happens, and the reason why that happens, of course, is that Proofpoint and all these systems' stated purpose is before an email gets to your subscriber, they look at it, they scan it, they do another level of verification to make sure that it doesn't have anything malicious in it, because we think about email as some sort of straight line game where it's like you send the email, you hope they open, then they click and they buy something, but there's nothing that a spammer wants more in the world than to get into your e-commerce company's system and send an email that looks like you're doing an 80% off sale that's actually a malicious link that they click on.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
That's what they want.
So Proofpoint knows this. So it's scanning your emails, not because it thinks something's wrong, but it just wants to make sure that if you click on it, it actually goes to your regular old e-commerce or Shopify store or whatever, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. So a lot of these problems that come up is very simply your share of readers, the ratio gets wonky, and the internet goes, the ratio is weird. We had a spam report spike. We had a dramatic dip in clicks because your intern messed up the link and the link went to a dead page, and that's weird. Or there's too many redirects, or someone goes, hey, just use this link instead of that link, and that link goes to a bit.ly, and bit.ly is looked frowned upon. And then there's a lot more deep stuff that sometimes doesn't really match up client to client, but can affect, which is like the weight of the images, the age of the domain vis-a-vis the weight of the images, how much text is laying on top of images, and all these things that we don't typically get that deep into this kind of stuff, but email experts like Pilot House you might run test after test after test to try to figure out, wait a minute, why is this happening in this way? Oh, it's because we need,
80% of our users approximately are like heavy image. It's just an image email. We do have some people who do HTML, but a lot of it's just pure image.
And there's nothing wrong with an image, but some senders in some scenarios, that's the problem. It's like a funny thing where if from the get-go you were doing a certain style of email and it always wasn't a problem and you grew it nice and steady and your ratios haven't changed that much, the internet very well may be like, yeah, this is fine. And then at a certain point,
even though this is generally bad, we have this history of like low spam complaint, blah, 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 blah. So it's like, yeah, we think this is okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And also all the other simple factors like the website and the brand matches up with the products on the page, the words on the page.
What is Gmail? Is Gmail scanning the site? Like, is Gmail doing anything with the destination?
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah. What are they doing? Just like, hey, there's a sitemap. Is it like, you know what I mean? Like, right?
I think a bunch of things are happening, and I think it changes all the time. And there's probably a million different variations just because of the AI systems of machine learning that does the filtering. And my guess is that depending on the type of target and the type of email and the user behavior, it does different things.
Well, like would load speed matter? Like if it was a really slow loading site, would they be more likely to put the email in spam?
I don't think so. I think what's happening is they want line of sight to the link to the site that it's aimed at. So they want those to resolve each other. So if you say 40% off blouses and the link goes to a site that has blouses on it, that satisfies them. If it goes through two redirects where they can't see what's on the other side and a bunch of stuff loads in between, they look askance at it. That's why they don't really like things like bit.ly or things like that, because it is a redirect. Now, in email land, there are redirects that make sense and don't matter, and UTM parameters don't count as redirects, and da-da-da. So this isn't sort of a blanket statement. I'm just saying that if it gets to the site and there's no, the SSL is broken, the cert is broken on the site, well, it's not going to be happy to deliver it. Or if your email goes to America, but from America, but the recipient is in a country that they can't access the site at all, it's much less likely to be delivered.
Like Russia,
because,
right?
or whatever. Or, I mean, crazy stuff happens. You could be accidentally sending emails to Iran where we're not allowed to do business or something like that. You know, I don't know, maybe Canadians are, but, and it's not your fault at all. It's literally that you had a subscriber who moved back to Iran and then they open an email from you and then they can't load it or whatever. So I think that some of these things to a very small degree like do come into play, but for the most part, it's the overall general ratio of opens and interactions that are positive versus negative. And you're in this constant game of trying to make them positive. And when you call lists, you're basically boosting the ratio.
Yes. Yes. So, first of all, this has been a half an hour of like amazing, so deep down, which I love. But I have some stuff here that I thought maybe I could rapid fire a bit more structured for the audience.
Yeah, sure. I'm just blabbering on and on, guys.
Oh, no, I mean, it's actually, this is literally what I launched the podcast for, because I've been doing this for a long time, but you know, I mean, I'm like frontline, like just get the email, get the offer to the audience. And then there's all these the kind of, you know, people, what's the front line? What's the opposite of the front line? The back line? That doesn't sound right. There's everybody else, you know, who's making email work. And those people fascinate me. Right. You know, and any work I've done with that has always fascinated me. So that was amazing. And actually, seriously, I hope we actually just have another talk on the pod. You know, but just to structure a couple of things that I've thought of and written down over the course of what we just discussed. So listen to this. Let's say I send an email, right? And then to a really tight audience. And then an hour later, I clone the email and I send it to a looser audience, hoping that the inbox provider says, oh, this is probably the B version of a test. And I thought the A version was okay. So I'm going to inbox the B version. And then the B version's full of the less engaged stuff. Now, what I want to know is, do they actually think those are two different emails, or would they possibly think it's the B version, or the B version, the follow-up after the split test? And I think the deeper question is there an ID? Is there a unique ID somewhere that actually says this is the follow-up send of this first send, you know, or is there actually a simpler way to ask? If I know what you're asking. Yeah, but
you're basically saying if you start with engaged audience and then go to less engaged, is it more likely to deliver it?
If I do a follow-up send, if I send them separate.
I believe that it would help. But the mechanism that it's typically cited when talking about this is fingerprinting, which is an email goes out and it's not every line on the fingerprint that's the same every time. It's not every word that has to match up perfectly, but something about it has a lasting impression that the email service provider clocks. They remember. And if it was healthy and good in the ways that it needed to be, and the next batch of emails go out, it probably would be more likely to deliver those because the fingerprints match up and they go, oh, we've already seen this. So there is a certain amount of pattern matching, especially with same domain, possibly the same IP address or the same array of IP addresses, similar words, similar offer, similar everything.
How long would you think that fingerprinting, that caching would last?
That's a tricky question. Somebody knows. I don't know. But remind me, and I can ask my lead technician who knows all sorts of stuff about like the inner workings of how these systems are configured. I think that the email seems to work in sort of predictable cycles where there's 24-hour cycles where if you send over a certain amount gets clocked in a certain amount of time, it matters. And the reason why we think that 24 hours matters is that's how Google buckets the spam report rates. So it seems pretty logical that there'd be sort of a 24-hour window, that within that window, certain things are thought about. So it's possible that by doing it within a 24-hour window, that would solve that you could be fairly confident that it's going to be treated very similarly.
So follow-up question. I mean, when you look at the old RFCs, it looks like the email is just like the key is, sender and subject line. It's all very simple stuff. Like the old RFCs, it is a simple message transfer protocol. So if I send an email, right, and then send like literally the exact same email 20 minutes later, same subject line, but different recipient, are those two completely different sends? There's no unique identifier to say this is a different send, and it could be seen as two emails from the same campaign. Is that correct?
I think that if it has the same content, it will be correlated from the eyes of Google and Microsoft.
And say this probably came from the same campaign. Okay, all right, cool.
But at the same time, think about so in the cold email land, which we do a lot of email in, the emails are almost identical. Sometimes we've done email campaigns that have lasted a year with the same email every single day. I know that, but direct to consumer people, get their minds are blown when they're like, you can just send the same email to the audience. And there's a lot of reasons why it functions differently, but at the end of the day, you find something that works, and you can email the same email to 100,000 people, 1,000 a day, or 10 a day, or 400 a day or something. I think that the efficacy of those can decrease over time. So you can actually see, okay, email services are getting tired of this. Somehow the spam juju is accruing on this email copy. And the same thing can happen to a domain or to IP addresses as well, where it sort of seems to become less effective over time. But with consumer mail, it's tend to refresh quite often, or every single time it's different, and it's fully opt-in. So there is potential that you could actually spread a send over a longer period of time and it be effectively
treated the same,
refreshing itself over time. Like, I don't know. Now, the other thing I'll say, just because I'm talking a lot, so apologies, but the other thing I was going to say is that transactional emails, like a password reset email from Facebook or something, it never changes. Like the USPS notification when a package is going to be delivered or something, or UPS or something, it's almost identical with just a number different. And they send millions and millions, hundreds of millions a day. So it's not like there's any hard and fast rule that like, oh, the internet likes this and doesn't like that, and we'll deliver this or won't deliver that over time. It just doesn't really, there's no real rules. It's largely depends on the individual sender scenario.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like when you think about the kind of all the computer systems that people want to put together for true crime, that's the kind of system that's going to be used to predict, who's sending bad emails, I'm sure at some point, if not already. Another quick question. Look, I did a recent analysis of American Apparel, Everlane, and Urban Outfitters on the podcast, and many of them, the guys were sending like 1.25 to 1.5 emails per day. What do you think is necessary I was receiving, 1.5 emails per day from these brands. What do you think is necessary to...
I just want to know what a half an email looks like. I'm just kidding.
Well, the funny, American Eagle triple tapped me on one. I got like an email, and then I got the same email the next day, and I got the exact same email the third day. Like, it's quite aggressive. And I figure, like, look, those guys, if they get an address, that address is useless the next quarter because they got to hit their quarterly numbers because they're public companies. So they're just like, hey, get an address, 1.5 emails a day until they spend or screw off, right? So, but what do you think? What if you were like, hey, I've got a large DTC brand, like something like Urban Outfitters, and I want them to inbox, and I want to send 1.5 emails per day. What would be the biggest factors? I mean, we've talked about list cleansing, so of course list cleansing is important, but maybe beyond list hygiene, what would be important for them to maintain inboxing? Like, is it list size? Is it we were discussing a little bit? Is it the stability of send size? Is it engagement? Kind of what factors would help them inbox?
Yeah, this is like a terrible. I was gonna say, you're from Canada.
Yes, I am. Yeah, Victoria, British Columbia.
Canada's got quite a lot of metal bands.
I mean, probably from Alberta. There's probably a ton of.
I'm a music. I consider myself a music dude.
I mean, when you say metal, do you mean like the Tragically Hip? That doesn't count, does it?
Well, I don't know where I was going with that, but I'll explain where I was going with that to because the listeners are probably like, what is going on in this? We thought we were
Yeah,
talking about
and this
music.
guy's wearing a
There,
kung fu costume.
yeah, he's got a kung fu. It was Halloween. I'm dressed like a I don't know what, like a curly haired guy in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
which I am. What I was gonna say is that there's an old saying that was used by Dave Mustaine, lead singer of Megadeth, in an amazing album called Countdown to Extinction. Because when I was a teen, I was a huge metalhead, and I still love metal now, but I've matured. I'm a music guy, and I'm into all sorts of music, so don't bucket me with just metal. But it was, if you kill one, you're a murderer. You kill many, was it? Kill one, you're a murderer. Killed many, whatever, I don't remember what it is. Kill them all, and you're a god.
Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
this
Yeah.
phrase,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
gotcha. If you have spent $1 billion in building your brand and have stores all over America, the general rules of email deliverability just sort of apply differently.
Okay. All right.
If American Eagle or someone like that had a truly catastrophic spam disaster, it would be talked about in their earnings call. They'd have to disclose it for fear of of like some sort of. So it's always tricky when you're trying to extrapolate out one versus the other. I think that largely the very large brands have momentary things where things go to spam at a certain time or certain way and they recover. And the reason largely, and I'll ask my technicians for more details on this if you're curious, but largely what's happening is they have dedicated IP addresses that they've sent millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of emails through, that the whole internet up and down, left and right knows that if emails are coming from this IP address and this domain, they're from the genuine American Eagle, and there's nothing nefarious about these emails. And because of that stability, even if the volume of the sends and the lists are different and they go up and down or whatever, just simply because of that stability, the internet trusts it. Just like if you were a student at Stanford and you decide to do cold emails from your stanford.edu email address, it probably will be delivered.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as it's not full of spam junk in it or something. It just will be, even if you send a lot of those emails. Not that you should use those for your marketing emails, because that's a different thing. But
you think you would face an easier engagement threshold to be inboxed as well because you're so established. Is that correct? Like they can get away with lower click-through rates and lower open rates and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think they can get away with a lot. Plus, there's also one other factor that's really important. You didn't say, hey, I'm comparing American Apparel to Los Angeles Apparel, which is Dov Charney's new company. But even Los Angeles Apparel is probably 10 years old, and the domain's more than 10 years old. If you're trying to compare a brand new domain having company that came out of nowhere, probably the deliverability would be that they wouldn't be able to send as many emails and get them inboxed properly.
Okay.
In other words, so if you had a new brand that was like, yeah, we love that, we want to do 5 emails a day, probably the answer is going to be, we could, but that literally
we don't generally
cause
send
problems.
at that frequency. In fact, we've got a whole different strategy where we try to move as much as we can to automated emails.
You know what's great? You know what's interesting though? I was doing my own. I didn't study it like you do, or like went deep, but I was getting emails from one company, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. They chose this array of products to show me in this email, and then I went back in my inbox and found an email that they sent a year ago, and it was the same array of products. Why? Because it was serving the HTML today. So a lot of these guys are sending, I mean, this is dumb because I'm talking to D2C people, but a lot of these bigger brands are sending emails that it doesn't matter when you open them, it gives you the products that they think you want to buy now.
Yes.
Because they have these evergreen product lines, or they have these product lines that they serve. They know my size and shape and things I'm interested in. They know the season, and they don't want me looking at summer styles. They want me looking at fall styles. So even if I go back to a summer email and I click on it, it shows me fall fashion. So it's like, I think that they're getting away with a lot of intricacies that probably the average D2C company can't quite get away with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like that's out of the box Klaviyo stuff. In many ways, like that we do Amazon style, Amazon inspired recommendations out of Klaviyo. I'm sure it is not as sophisticated as what Amazon does, but we're helping small companies, kind of achieve the same kind of thing.
Well, what
Um,
I was just gonna say one more thing because it's a plug for my own company,
yes, we have to get to that
which
too.
is
You jumped
one
right
is
into
one
the
of the
deepest stuff, right?
one of the differences between the companies, like the B2B companies that we help, for some very large and some medium sized, but do a lot of cold email for their sales development or partnership development or whatever. Oftentimes you're in the sales process where we're pointing out what's wrong and it needs to be fixed. And they're like, well, can't we just fix that one time and then we pay you and then that's that. And at the end of the day, oftentimes the thing that makes the large brand emails better, consistent over time is they have a dedicated team or eyeballs on their IP addresses and making sure they're happy and healthy, making sure the domain's off blacklists all the time, and that really focus on the day-to-day health of their systems. And most brands who send through Klaviyo or send through a marketing cloud don't actually get access to their IP addresses, and they can't benefit from that kind of thing, which is fine. But there's a certain class of brand that really does benefit. And then the other thing that we're oftentimes tasked with direct to consumer brands is helping with their B2B emails if they're trying to go wholesale or trying to develop partnerships. Those shouldn't be done through Klaviyo at all. They really shouldn't. It's a totally different kind of email, totally different structure is necessary. And then the third thing that you and I talked about before is in a totally purchased brand or purchased list scenario, it's very common to run emails out of Klaviyo in more of a cold email style just to see what life is on the other side of those emails before you put them into general
Yeah, like a
sending.
pre-screen, basically, right?
Like a pre-screen, yeah.
Yeah.
So we oftentimes orchestrate those with
And so you'll do that.
brands.
Someone would come to you and say, yeah, actually,
Like we have these 100,000 emails or these million emails, and we think that they're good and valid, and we ran it through validation, but and we say, okay, we orchestrate them all text emails in a very defined way with very specific click-throughs, etc. And then once you do that, then okay, this person has raised their hand and proven that they're real. You put them into the Klaviyo because then you can have more confidence.
I think we should pivot to this because again, we jumped so fast into the most amazing discussion on deliverability that I'm just like, I'm jacked on that talk. Why don't you just really quickly tell us exactly what it is that senders.co does?
I'd say we're a consultancy, but for some clients, we even host emails. And we mainly focus on cold email. Also work with a handful of D2C brands when they have specific deliverability challenges. But by and large, we're the kind of place where if you're banging your head against the wall with deliverability issues, questions, concerns, we calm those concerns and get you on a good sending path.
But I'll add that's when it's like the engine's already broken down. You know what I mean? Which is we fight with a lot of people through that, and hey, we'll work with you while we fight through that with some people. But what also again I find exciting, we were kind of getting to some of the stuff here, and I want to go through a few more things. Is like, well, let's say what'd you just say? You say American Apparel's in a different league. Okay, well, you know what? What if we want to fight in that league? What if we want to get up there? What if we want that kind of inboxing placement? How can we take someone that's running already really well as a scaling brand and get them that extra juice? And so you would also consult in that kind of capacity as well, do you think?
Yeah, my dudes, my technical dudes are good at that.
Yeah,
that kind
cool.
of thing.
All right, awesome. Well, generally speaking, everybody out there, look, obviously contact them. I brought them on the pod.
Yeah, my name is Benny. You can email me, benny@senders.co. You can go to senders.co. You can go talk to Jordan, and then if you have some crazy intractable problem, they can loop us in.
Let me pick your brain on a couple of more things to close this off. So here's some stuff again, we take these brands a lot of the time. It's like, it's a dire situation and we have our tactics are move a bunch. smaller campaign size, lighter frequency, higher engagement, shift over to do more automations. So we're getting inboxing to people who have shown intent, are likely to visit, and to kind of balance it out. And, the senders seem to like it. So that's kind of just a very common play of ours. And then once that's running well, hey, okay, then let's get a bit more spammy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a step back, re-energize, jump back in is kind of what we're doing a lot of the time. But even once you're running smooth like that, we want to take it to the next level. And so some of the stuff that's on my mind, which we just discussed a little bit, was like most segmentation that gets used in kind of the D2C space. I audit dozens and dozens and dozens of brands and other agencies' work. And it's always like, has clicked in the last 90, has opened in the last 90, something like that. And sometimes they're not even doing anything with bot clicks or Apple privacy opens, in which case it's like just messaging everybody basically. Now, but the point is, it always seems to be recency. And we do some segments where we'll go, hey, you know what, if they've had a higher frequency, maybe reach a bit further back. We haven't really been scientific about this though. And so I've been wondering and looking to do some research, but maybe you can help me decide if I should even do that research at all. If someone is engaging more often over a given period of time, rather than just once in that given period of time, are they more likely to be inboxed? Is it more positive? Could I go further back with that individual because they have engaged more frequently? Basically, is frequency just as powerful as recency? Is frequency subsidiary to recency in engagement?
Oh, that's fascinating. I'm trying to see what my gut is telling me without any data to back it up. We all know that there's sort of a magical balance that needs to be struck where someone could open every email you send. So you up the game to send more to that same person, and then that's when they unsubscribe. So that is always a consideration, and only marketers like you can really find that perfect balance. I do think that there is sort of a world in which you could start to get a little bit clever with pattern interrupts that usually people think pattern interrupts are like, hey, we know what email works and we write a subject line that sort of catches their attention or something. But that's very different from the email you get from the CEO of the brand when you normally get it from marketing or something. And it's an all text email. So I think things like that are interesting. And those you might be able to pull older segments that haven't engaged in a certain amount of time and say, hey, we're going to send them this kind of odd pattern interrupt email or something.
And let me ask, if we did that, let me frame this. We did extensive research a little bit ago, published on the pod, where it's like, look, the amount of time where we find Gmail will email someone, if they haven't engaged in a certain number of days, they'll just suddenly, open rate just drops, and everything's going to spam. So there seems to be a time frame where afterwards Gmail's like, it's been too long since this person's engaged. We're not going to inbox it. And that we saw that tighten up after all the changes in 2024. So you just said, hey, we're going to send this CEO email and it's going to get that further reach back open. So if it did get that further, if that further group did open, that would indicate that if Gmail saw, hey, like, are they sending a small sample, and they see, is there engagement? And if that small sample does well, they'll send and reach that longer back group. And let me ask another way.
Oh, I see what you mean.
What would cause it to not just go to spam if they're already past that period of time?
That's tricky. It's a deep question.
Yeah, this is how to inbox.
Let's do this. Let's do another session. I'll bring one of my technicians on, and he can tell you his own deep thoughts about this stuff.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yes. Let's wrap it up. And so, audience, first of all, that was amazing. What a great discussion we just had. Again, the world's best email retention podcast. We're bringing you the greatest minds in email. And until next time, entrepreneurs, executives, spammers, and webmasters, have fun spamming.
In the inbox late night, glowing screen, see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
Hey entrepreneurs and spammers, remember, you can't scale without email, and the cheapest customer to acquire is the customer you already have. So please subscribe to the world's best email and retention podcast and learn how to make low-cost revenue a big part of your digital ecosystem.